And time to start the actual stream. Boop. As you can tell, blank page. Blank pages are fun because you can put anything you want on them. Huzzah! Let's just fix this up real quick. This should be at 10. And there. You are bold. You and you are bold. This goes to 9. Delete. Now, as a general rule of thumb, what I tend to start off with, as I think I may have mentioned this in the past, what I tend to start off with is so. So we all know, so we're all on the same page, because some of you may just be seeing this for the first time. This is for Commander. So what I'm doing is, Commander generally has, so it's 100 cards, including your general or generals. Which means, most of the time, one Commander and 99 other cards. 99 is 9 times 11. I generally want about, I generally find around 44-ish lands and then actual ramp spells, usually mana rocks, to be where I want to be. I also play at the kitchen table. I'm not playing, and the people I play with tend to be fairly relaxed, fairly easygoing when it comes to, like, for example, when I was playing, I'm going to pull this deck up real quick, just because I have a bit of a funny story. I like building weird stuff for Commander. And I recently finished putting together this beastie. Actually, I'll pull up the deck list here. Copy. Paste. And what this is it's a mono blue deck that thinks it's a green deck. Okay? This is a mono blue deck that thinks it's a green deck. It tries to take lands out. It has stuff that taps for mana. It's got a few little combo bits, but it also it tries to ramp into big stuff. I tried to build it like a green deck with, and also make sure I keep him some spot removal, and actual spot removal. Blue's spot removal is best known for being bounce, primarily. Although, as of late, it's gotten more into, I'll destroy it or I'll exile it, but I'll give you a creature token in response. A really good example would be something like Raven Form. Oh, that does not work that way. Let's try that. Which exiles an artifact or creature. And they get a 1/1 bird. They get a 1/1 bird instead. This thing. And So I'm sitting here trying to build it. I'll go away. I built it to be as much like a green deck as I could. Um, I dig out a bunch of lands. I've got stuff that taps for extra mana. Um, I have. I've got spot removal. I've got mass removal. I have stuff with landfall triggers. Yes, I found landfall triggers that I could use. Some of which was really fun, like Trench Behemoth. You know, whenever land you control enters, target creature an opponent controls attacks during its controller's next combat phase of Fable. In other words, land comes into play, your creature has to attack now. No, 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 no. Like on your next turn, your creature has to attack. What? Yeah, yeah. I also have under spot removal, Colossal Whale. Whenever it attacks, you may exile target creature defending player controls until Colossal Whale leaves the battlefield. So I built this. I actually finally physically built it. Finally physically finished building it recently. And the most expensive card for this is Mana Drain. And here's the fun part. Mana Drain is not there to be a counter spell. Okay, where are you? Where are you? Oh, it's under Rituals and Storage. Mana Drain. 2 blue, instant. At the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of colorless equal to that spell's mana value. I don't care if the card I'm countering says it cannot be countered, because this is not there to counter the spell. You understand what I'm saying? I don't care if the count, because as long as the spell is a legal target and saying this spell can't be countered, doesn't stop it from being a legal target for Mana Drain or any other counter spell. As long as the spell is still a legal target, it will do as much as it can. So it does as much as it can. It fails at the countering part, but Mana Drain doesn't say if it was countered this way, because this is also long before that wording existed, because this originally came out in Legends. Pardon me. And so, you know, this predates the if it was countered this way, do this other thing. No, no, no. Counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's mana value. Cool. It's there. So if I end up with, I don't know, let's say, that's not what I said. If I end up countering Obliterate, a well-known card that has that line, can't be countered. Well-known, at least for commander circles. At least used to be incredibly well-known. And it's like, ugh. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They can't be regenerated. 8 mana. Okay. It still happens. I'm losing all my lands. I'm losing all my creatures. I'm losing all my artifacts. Anything that, as a category, will generally, produce mana for you. Oh. Oh, that's hilarious wording. The enemy has been destroyed, sir. So have the forest, the city, your palace, your dog. I feel sorry for the Keldon soldier that had to deliver that. But yes. I do have a card that will actually help me get back on track, though, in the Bath song. Because if I manage to get this off, if I manage to chapter 3 this, right after my opponent has gone, so basically, chapter 2, I get the second ability of the Bath song. My opponent goes, okay, obliterate. This is an enchantment, so it doesn't get blown up by obliterate. Chapter 3 goes off. Shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library. Add double blue. Shuffle anything that produced mana for me back into my deck, plus, a bunch of other stuff. Get 2 blue. Plus the 8 mana for mana draining the obliterate. I now have 10 mana. I'm going to start casting my stuff again. Oh, crap. Yeah. Where was I going with this? Yeah. This deck was kind of silly. Right. I remember where I was going with this. So I was playing against a friend last night. And she had just finished building a deck. And it was a deck based around rolling dice. I had planned out what cards I wanted to get in. And even if I hadn't planned out what cards I wanted for the deck specifically, I already had an idea. I need, a batch of cards to do this, a batch of cards to do that, so on and so forth. And she's like, well, here's the bunch of cards that I've got. What else do I need to put in? And she wanted to play it against me last night. My deck had a specific. My deck, I'd already figured out what I wanted for it. I got the cards. I threw in some crazy stuff. Let's be honest. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. Turns everything into a forest. Just like Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Turns everything into a swamp. Those 2 lands do not have a color identity. Because they don't have a colored mana symbol anywhere on them. They don't have a cost. They are colorless. They themselves are colorless. It's like if you have... Here's an interesting example. If you have a green card that says it has Swamp Walk, does it have a green-black color identity? No, it's green. Unless it also happens to be black because it's cost says so or otherwise. But anyway, if the cost and everything else just says green, and it has Swamp Walk, it's a green card. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth uses the same word, swamp, doesn't have a cost or anything. Yavimaya is the exact same thing, just turns them into forests. So I can legally put this into any commander deck. And this now allows lands that I have to tap for colored mana, which is rarely relevant. Okay, there's a couple of spots where it is, but it's rarely relevant. And then I have this cute little thing here, Life Tap. Back from Magic's earliest days. Back when Wizards of the Coast, not being, still trying to figure out what a card being too powerful is. Some might argue they still have that problem today. The One Ring, etc. Love to see it. but still trying to figure out what abilities certain colors should have. Blue only got life gain here for two reasons. One, they were still trying to work, but two, you could still hate on an opposing color fairly easily and get a related benefit. So life tap, 2 blue, that lets you gain life, but it says whenever a forest an opponent controls becomes tapped. Yeah, even the 5th edition wording. Whenever whenever any forest target opponent controls becomes tapped, you gain 1 life. It targeted the opponent back then, but realistically it didn't. Like, I think back then the idea was you target your opponent with it, but it was still commonly expected to be a one-on-one game back then. Now that that concept is greatly reduced because of the popularity of formats like Commander. Other formats too. You know, the occasional two-headed giant thing coming up with whatchamacallit, Battle Bond, which was hilarious because having spells with assist is funny. But yeah, suddenly this gave me a blue way to gain life. At which point I felt, okay, I don't have a lot of ways of drawing cards. I'm playing blue, but I'm not playing it in a blue manner. I think doing that gives me a valid reason to play Well of Lost Dreams. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained if you do draw X cards. So if I get an instruction that says gain 5 life, I can pay anywhere up to 5 mana, and however much mana I paid, that's how many cards I'm drawing. I figured that's fair. So. But, as I was saying, I had a plan. I had an idea what I wanted to do with my deck. And I'd already sketched out, even if it wasn't exactly. In my case, it was. I already more or less knew what cards I was putting in. And she had gone, here's a bunch of cards that roll dice. What else do I need to put in? And then she wanted to test it out that night. My opening hand, I don't remember the 7th card. I had 2 islands, Silvermere, which is a 2 mana artifact creature that taps for blue, Sea Scryer, 1 blue, 1 other for a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard, taps for colorless, or you can tap 1 mana and tap it to make a blue. So basically, 1 by itself will tap for colorless. 2 together can either make 2 colorless or make a blue. Burnished Heart, which is a 3 mana 2/2 artifact creature that you can pay 3 and sack it to get 2 basics out of your deck, put them in play tapped. And I had the 2 mana sword. Sword of the Animist. Legendary equipment. Tap 2 to cast, 2 to equip. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Occasionally useful. Most relevantly in this deck, whenever a equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tapped, and shuffle. It means my creatures now, the creature it's equipped to now has an attack trigger of fetching land. between two creatures that tap for mana, an equipment that I could play on either of them and equip to either of them. That would suddenly make my 1/1 into a 2/2, which doesn't sound like much, but it's faster than most turn 1 or turn 2, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 plays in Commander, creature wise. Well, maybe I shouldn't say most, but a lot. And the attack trigger fetches me land, which suddenly meant I could cast. I'm turn 4, I think it was. I attacked with the Burnished Heart with the sword equipped. Then after combat, sacked the heart and fetched 2 more lands out of my deck. And I just I just kept going, and yes, I won that game. However, when I started realizing that she's having a lot of trouble against this deck, I slowed down. And, yes, I would still attack, but I wouldn't attack with it. I would attack with like one creature, and it would commonly be like, a 3/3 or something like that. Sometimes I'd attack with like, okay, now you've got a big enough board. Now attack with a 6/6 or an 8/8 or whatever. But I gave her the opportunity, and unfortunately, we were stuck playing 1v1 because, we're playing at home, and she was the only other person that was available to play at that point. But yeah, you take your time, you relax, you let people if they just finished building their deck, you don't run them over right away. Give them a chance to try and get their deck to do its thing. Engage with them. Be happy for their triumphs when, in circumstances like that. And if you're gonna beat them, at least let them enjoy the idea of letting them see their deck try and do its thing. At one point, it's like, all right, it's like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I gotta be up early in the morning. Oh, okay, so we just finished this game? Yeah. All right, another turn or two later, and it's like splat. But kitchen table. We're very casual at my kitchen table. I may, go on occasionally about how the rules work. But as far as actual gameplay is concerned, whatever. Kitchen table. But that's the reason I brought up this deck. And it's a very fun deck. There's certain things that there's a couple of things in here that triggered the idea of building mono blue ramp. I've been playing for about 30 years, so like really old stuff, like Sea Scryfall is something I've always wanted to be able to throw into a deck. It's the card people would not expect. Sphinx of Magosi. Yes, it draws cards, but it also gets bigger with +1/+1 counters, which is not a thing you normally see. Knowing about Silvermere and Solemn Simulacrum and then Ornithopter of Paradise is amazing, and I love it. And it just got to the point where I knew about enough weird cards that I'm like, I have to build mono blue ramp. Iceberg is a card nobody will ever expect. 2 blue plus X. Enchantment. Enters with X ice counters on it. Pay 3 to put an ice counter on it, and then remove an ice counter to add colorless. So it's kind of like um, gemstone array, but it'll only produce colorless. But it's the same idea, and it's a blue card. And for decks like for as a general for decks that are X that are trying to be Y, like my mono green Dosan control deck that tries to play like an Esper control deck, including being down with flyers. If I can find a green card to do a thing that I'm looking for, I'm putting the green card in before I even go to a colorless card for it. I had the same role when I built my as somebody at one of my local game shops says, um, this is a mono blue deck that identifies as green. I don't think he's wrong saying that. And it turned out, first trial run, turned out not too bad. And I've only got 3 rampy artifacts at all in here because I have enough other ramp. I've got the Sapphire Medallion, I've got Soul Ring, and I've got Everflowing Chalice because that thing will just tap for a lot of mana. You know. Um, oh yeah. And I've got Karn's Bastion in here, which is largely here to combo with Decimator Web, which is here under combo bits. 4 to cast, 4 tap. Target opponent loses 2 life. I'm going to say this out of order. Mill 6 cards and gets a poison counter. The poison roll for commanders still has not changed. It is still 10 poison, and they're out of the game. I have a few other cards in here that have counters. So Karn's Bastion, even without the web, is not bad. But this gives me an alternate win condition outside the usual shenanigans. Anyway, enough of that rambling. Let's get into tonight's deck. Now, we're going to start off with what Ramirez DePietro actually does. Now, here's the fun part. If I go to Scryfall and I pull up all of the creatures that you can play as commanders, sort by color. 13 creatures. I personally allow Prismatic Piper and Faceless One to also count because they were printed at a high enough rarity that you were getting them, in a booster box you probably got a dozen. So they may even be considered more common than common. Somewhere between common and basic land. So I allow them to be generals. That also allows me to build decks that use the other colors as generals that don't have, for example, until Skoa came out, your only options for a mono red general or a mono colored general at all were Chandler and Joven. Prismatic Piper allowed me to break that. Faceless One then allowed me to do it again and add backgrounds. And we'll when I start showing off some of these other decks, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But as for the rest of them are all there. The rest of them are all common uh, vanilla creatures that were originally printed in Legends. Let's make this slightly smaller so they all fit. There we go. There were 10 of them, 2 for every allied color pair, because they really didn't do Legends being the first set that introduced multicolored cards to begin with. They didn't want, and they introduced the legendary, the idea of legend. Like back then, legend was a creature type. They eventually changed it into a super type so you could have things like legendary lands and legendary enchantments and whatever else. But initially, it was a creature type. You could have summon legend. And if you take a look at these 10 cards, let's scroll down a bit like that. You'll notice that all of them, the text boxes, all flavor text, except for Ramirez DePietro. He's the only one. And the other thing is, I think these were all initially. I'm just going to take a quick glance here. Yeah, and because they're all. Whoops. Yep. They're all common, or sorry, they were all originally uncommons, but like, and they all, apart from Ramirez, had no abilities. But they were kind of bleh. Like, for example, Torsten von Ursus is a 6 mana 5/5 that requires 3 colored mana for no reason, and that's how they costed certain cards back then. In fact, if you look at Sir Chandler of Eberron, he's a 4/7, 1 white, 1 green, and 4. Torsten is a 5/5 for 2 green, 1 white, and 3 other. So they both cost, relevantly, they both cost 6 mana. If you knock out 1 white, 1 green, and 3, bear with me here, you're left with 1 colorless mana left over for Sir Chandler, and 1 green mana left over for Torsten. And the difference between a colorless and a green is a 4/7, which if you had to try and balance the colors closer to, or the size closer to each other, you'd be looking at a 5/6 versus a 5/5. Torsten hit a little bit harder. And Sir Chandler had a much bigger butt. Like, more than enough to compensate for the extra. Yeah, these two could continually clash against each other. And nobody moves. And then all the way up here at the top, we have the general for tonight. We have Ramirez DePietro. It's a 4/3 with first strike. Now I plan on making this deck out of nothing but commons. I have a thought for how to build this deck of nothing but commons. So, let's go to all our commons. ID is UB. We're restricting ourselves to blue-black. Alright. Now, unsurprisingly, we've got 4,000 cards to choose from. Keep in mind, I only care if Commander says it's legal. Doesn't change any of the restrictions. Okay. So, I want flicker / reanimate shenanigans. Alright. Let's start off with this. Let's start off with something that can bring something back. 21 cards. Now, I think the first question is, how much flicker and reanimation do I want? I want a healthy amount of bodies to work with. So I think I'm going to start off with if I have, let's say, 22 bodies that come into play to do a thing. If I have 20, because 20, 25, somewhere in there, that come into play and do a thing, then I think it's fair to say that for reanimating stuff, let's see how much reanimation I have, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to... Oh. What if I just get rid of the word graveyard? Will that get me everything? Let's just get rid of that phrase. Oh. To, not onto. There we go. Alright, first things first. Actually, let's look at what onto says. Onto is 8. Search library. Exhume, we want. Shadowborn Apostle would be hilarious. I'm curious. There are 8 demons that are legal. Well, let me rephrase that. There are 8 demons that are common. Whenever one America. Oh, that's adorable. Each creature that blocked this turn gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control become blocked, each blocking creature gets Oh, that's amazing. Alright, so if I do decide to do a common based Shadowborn Apostle deck, I have Hezru is actually pretty decent to fetch out. Renegade Demon, although it doesn't do anything, is not actually awful. It's a 5/3 for 5. uh, you I'm not dealing with because you deal with it. Well, I mean, again, it'd be slightly easier to cast Renegade Demon. Enters, choose one. I might want the Etched Host Doombringer anyway, because it deals with battles, and if somebody's playing with battles, I can either add or subtract 3 battles, largely depending on whether, you know, yeah, if I want to make it easier for somebody to deal with. Oh, that's funny. Soul Stinger. Put 2 -1 counters on. Oh, that's cute. That is cute. Okay. Okay. And then I've got Thraxodemon as a small one that in case I need to draw more cards. Oh. Or the Ecstatic Awakener, which turns into a 4/4 fairly easily. Okay. And what if it's got Changeling? What's the biggest I see? 1/3, 1/4, 2/4. Licharican Seekers, which is not completely unreasonable. Okay. Okay. Wow, that is hilarious. How much is Shadowborn Apostle? Still $1.50. Alright. But that's a card that's worth actually looking into. Lantern of Revealing is going to be a card I'm going to want for this deck anyway. But most of these cards are going to deal with searching for a thing. Something about the top of your deck and putting it in play. With the exception, the primary exception here of Exhume. Oops. Will you stop running away? Thank you. So Exhume's the only flicker effect. Scare Tiller, I know I'm going to want. Um, Walking Atlas. Walking Atlas. No, I probably not running enough lands. And Wayfarer's Bauble. Wayfarer's Bauble does the big benefit to a card like Wayfarer's Bauble is the fact that you can do it as an instant. But most of these cards are going to be searching for something that's in your deck and bring it in play. So let's rule out on 2 and just go to 2. Let's start off with Reanimation. Whoops. There. And center those. Oh. You know what? Sort by color. False Demise. Oh, I don't get Fool's Demise? Ah, I'm sad. It's an uncommon. False Demise, on the other hand. When an enchant creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. It's a control magic effect. That way, so, oh, you died. How terrible. I think I do want Argivian Restoration, though. Because having one card that can bring back an artifact, which is likely to be an artifact creature, let's be honest. There are some artifact creatures that people play that you want. I'll have some of that. Oh, from your graveyard. I might want it anyway. Returning stuff to... Okay. Ghostly Flicker needs to go in. Cauldron, Fairy, Dragon, Shadow. Okay. I don't want to go... Don't want to go too hard into the paint for reanimation, but I want a decent amount. Whenever enchant permanent dies or... Oh, you control. Okay. Return itself, return itself, return itself. Revoke Demise is going to be nice. Revoke Demise, rise again. Excuse you. Summon Undead. I like the fact that Summon Undead does not target anything. Unearth, I don't like. When an enchant creature dies, return it to the... Unhallowed Pact is literally another False Demise. If it's in your... Let's go Unholy in... No. No. I think we have enough. When it dies, return to the battlefield under your control the +1 counter on it. You know what? I'm gonna cut out Exhume, I think. I will, however, add the Unholy Indenture. Alright. Ghostly Flicker. What was the wording on Ghostly Flicker again? Under your control. Let's just see if there's any other reanimation that I want to do. No, no. Okay. And then flicker effects. Blur maybe. Up to 2 displace. Oh. You're going to be like that again, are you? Alright. Okay. Planar incision is a stuff like that is a maybe. Exile up to one other target creature you control. Oh! Oh, that's cute. Yes. Sky Skipper Duo. So 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer, which in and of itself does not sound amazing. However, A, we're reanimating and flickering stuff. When it enters, exile up to one other target creature you control. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, I reanimate this. This flickers that. So that can do its... Yeah. That's the thing you want to flicker. Or reanimate. Oh, that's hilarious. Exile target permanent you control. Return it under... Teferi's tongue twist is cute. I might. The flavor text on that is hilarious. The safest place for you is not now. I.e., go somewhere else. Wormfang Drake I am not unhappy with. It's a 3/4 flyer for 3 that basically puts one of your creatures into storage. That's kind of cool. Wormfang Newt does the same thing as a 2 mana 2/2 for your lands, but it's more relevant for the creatures. Alright, can I get any more? I'm not completely unhappy with Blur. Song 2. What? Alright, let's see what else there is. I know I went through this already, but I feel like I... Oh! Uh... Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, nothing that does anything that I'm concerned about there. Alright. Alright. Am I missing anything? Oh, this is weird. Is it really only Ghostly Flicker that's blue that sees any popper play? Now I'm curious. uh... Yeah, basically. Nothing has, nothing's got retrace, nothing's got, realistically, blue-white flicker popper decks. Let's just look at this real quick. South that comes into play does a thing. Dig, bounce, counter. Yeah! Okay. I guess that's the thing. Okay. So, I guess that means that we're looking at single target that does a bit more. So blur is fine. Oh, planar incision is hilarious. I'm going to grab Siren's Ruse because it specifically cares about pirates, and if you look in chat, Ramirez DePietro says it's a pirate. Okay, I think that is enough of getting stuff back for now. You are reanimate, so you are going to be gray. You are flicker, so you're actually going to be a light. You're going to be yellow to represent white because white's the common color that gets used for flickering. P.S. In case you're wondering why it's called flickering, it's named after this card. 2 mana sorcery. Exile target non-token permanent, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. which is also why you have Flicker Form and Flickering Spirit. Even Flickering Ward you can argue because you've got a way to bounce back to your hand. All fairly old cards. And then Ghostly Flicker, Flicker Wisp, Flicker of Fate, all basically do the same thing, the same general idea, which is why it gets referred to as flickering. Okay. How many bodies do I want that I've got? Um, we want to deal with creatures. I am curious what there are. None? Oh. Well, when it enters your release, you... That is actually not... That is actually not a bad card. Okay, that's cheating. When Rune Servant or dies. Cheat. Just for curiosity's sake, is there any way to punish somebody for drawing cards? No. Nope. Okay. It was worth a shot. Okay. What if it's not a creature? This thing is funny. It's just it's basically bad terror, and terror was no, it's bad dark banishing, although cheaper. Ba-ba. All right. Screw it. It'll be too hard to figure that out properly. Um, That would really be tempting. Whenever a blue permanent... Oh. Oh, Sage's Row Dennison would be funny. Keep that in the back of my head. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Just because it'd be funny. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Can't be blocked by creatures the monarch controls. Okay. Oh. 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 Oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks hilarious. Okay. What can we... Alright. I'm going to start off with you. Azure Fleet Admiral. You become the monarch. Let's see what else there is that does something that gives me cards, etc. Prosperous Pirates is... Oh. I need to put Mnemonic Wall in here. I need to put Mnemonic Wall... Oh. Yeah. I need to make a note about Mnemonic Wall. Prosperous Pirates. Enters, make 2. If you attack with a creature this card, you can loot. As long as an artifact entered. Which also includes treasure. Whoops. Look, reveal a top card, put in your hand if it's a land, otherwise put +1 counter. Then put it back or into your graveyard. Talos Lookout and Siren Lookout. That's going to get confusing. I don't mind Trove Tracker. Waylaying Pirates. Enters if you control an artifact. Tap target artifact or Oh, that's cute. I'm... What? Oh, that's why. For each attacking creature without flying, its controller may pay 1. If that player doesn't, for each attacking creature... Wait. If that player doesn't, creatures you control... Oh! Oh, this is a defensive card. The opponent attacks and can pay 1 per attacker. And any they don't pay that mana for, anything that blocks it gets first strike. Oh, that's dangerous. If you attack target, yeah, don't care. I'm currently looking for some kind of card advantage stuff right now. Enters battlefield. Oh, you've got Menace, or some like to call it Menace. Dire Fleet Interloper. Enters about to destroy target creature and opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. Eh. Enters if you attack this turn, look at the top 3. You may put 1 back on. Oh! I'm okay with that. Order of the Ebon Hand. Does not have an enter the battlefield ability. Alright. So. Those get me cards. Stuff that gets me extra mana somehow is gonna go here. Excuse you? That's not what I said. Yes, I know that's what I said, but that's not what I said. Whenever you sack it. Okay, that's cute. Another target creature. Another target creature. Oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. Prosperous Pirates. Sailor of Memes. Maybe. I mean, you're cheap. Guys, make a treasure. Oh, greedy freebooter is always good. Wait, that's it? Unless I go for the one-offs? Alright. I guess Sailor of Memes. Make sure I actually spell it right so I don't get confused when I'm typing it in. And all right. So that's those. Anything else that's got... All right. Let's just get the pirate or the first strike out of here. Get that taken care of. As long as you're controlling snowlands, no. So I want tidal flats, limb duels on our guard, probably. Yeah, maybe. Order of the Ebon Hand. Rigid coup site. And oh, that's why. No, give me the lance because it gets +2 +0 regardless. Alright. Title flats. Limb duels high guard. Order of the Ebon Hand. Ridged coup site. And nah, give me the bladed pinions. Oh no, I want bladed pinions anyway, didn't I? Wasn't there something else I wanted? Yeah, give me the jousting lance, I guess. Alright. You, bold. You, bold. Let's make you a light red color. Sure. Fine. Oh, not quite. Alright. Which means I can make you 10 again. Alright. um... Which means now I can look at pirates. Are there any other pirates that have... See, here's the thing. I don't need to restrict myself to pirates. But I want his thing to make sense. Hold on a sec. Uh... Okay. Sorry, that was my roommate wanting wanting to know things and do things and be things and whatnot and such. Uh, where am I? There. Oh, good. But yes, like I said, I wanted my I wanted the fact that he was a so here's the thing. Whoops. What? Oh. Oh. Oh no. Whoops. What? Let's try this again. Okay, what did that rule out? Oh, that's why. There. I wanted my choice of Ramirez over Savitri to make sense. I didn't have a reason. So here's the thing. Savitri Scarsum is a 7 mana 6/4. Ramirez is a 6 mana 4/3, but we're first strike. Savitri is just a human. Ramirez is a human pirate. I could have easily gone Savitri Scarsum, and there'd be no wrong answer for going for Savitri Scarsum, except it didn't lead or suggest or guide in any particular way. Ramirez DePietro is $7.22 compared to, for whatever, 4.15 because it's a pirate, largely on the back of being a pirate. So I wanted the pirateness to account for something. I wanted to be able to try and build a thing. What about changelings? Uh. So. I'm not expecting a dozen changelings that I have an interest in. Latiara Kinseekers. Changeling Outcast doesn't really do anything I'm looking for. Ghostly Changing, on the other hand, maybe. Skeletal Changeling. Venomous Changeling. And Bark Form Harvester. Nah, you're gonna have to go narrow. Because being able to get, a 1/1 on the ground on turn 1, this is Commander. You might as well spend an extra mana and get a 2/2 or 1/3 or whatever on the ground on turn 2. So these are pirates. Alright, let's go back to pirates and let's look for other pirates that are interesting to play. Captain of Umbar is actually kind of good. Deadeye Rig Hauler. Maybe. Oaken Siren. Spend blue only on artifact stuff. No. Rishadan Cut Purse. Oh, but you're only a 3 mana 1/1. Each opponent's action. No, no. I would like to, but I don't think it works well enough for what I'm looking for. Enters battlefield to explore. So I already did that. Oh, Steam Frigate. A 3/3 with only partial island home. Okay, tell us, Explorer. That looks kind of fun. Did I do Whaling Pirates? Yeah, I did. Enters a few. Desperate Castaways is fine. Dinosaur Hunter, maybe. Alright, Desperate Castaways. 3 more. Ugh. Talk about being desperate. Dinosaur Hunter. Fathom Fleet Border. And then Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. Alright. Let's spell fleet properly here. 9. 9. Cool. These guys are pirates. What color do we make pirates? Let's make them blue. Cool. I need mnemonic wall. Archaeomancer. Actually, sort by five mana. What if I can do both? There. Alright. I need... So this is going to be... Actually, you know what? I'm going to put Scare Tiller over there. Mnemonic Wall is a 0-4. I want something that doesn't sacrifice itself. Archaeomancer. I said Mancer. Repository Scab. Oh. Salvager of Secrets. Shipwreck Dowser. Do I play the Repository Scab? The Possessed Scab... The Possessed Scab is weird because it's legal in... It'd be listed as common and Pioneer Masters. Pioneer Masters release date. Okay. So it's only... The rarity of cards in MTG Arena only refers to MTG Arena formats, being common cards in Pioneer Masters will be labeled Legal and pauper constructed on empty, but not in table. Oh. So that's an interesting question. I think I think I'm going to say no to possess scab due to the fact that it is Wizards of the Coast says as far as pauper is concerned, it is not legal because it's only I think that's a coin toss. I really think that's a coin toss. And I only saw that actually that article came out when? Uh 8 hours ago. So I'm going to assume that was not a thing that was at least made public. All right. Then give me the repository scab, I think. All right. Then I need what? I need. I don't have much left, so I need a handful of removal. I need a handful of removal, which means I'm going to need introduction to annihilation. All right. Actually, oh, Raven form. Let's start off with that. um, ashes to ashes. Because I do not have much left in slots, and I probably want 2 sack outlets. Which means I've really only got 1 slot left. So, feed the serpent, 4 mana. You know what? Fast for this back up to the top. Sort by mana value. Eaten alive would work. Eaten alive kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Bloom. Feed the serpent is 4 mana outright. Eaten alive is 5. Oh. Oh! Overwhelming remorse. Alright. You can probably go to 9. You have to go probably narrow 9. Whoops. Oh, nope, narrow fits. Your removal, so you should be... Actually, your recursion, I'm going to make you green. Going to make you... Wrong one. Going to make you that brownish color. And then the last couple of things I want are sack outlets. Oh, oh, that's funny. Brian Shaman is remove soul. Oh, I like that. Oh, no, I want to start you by color again. Uh, yeah, Brian Shaman. Sack a creature, regenerate. That's adorable. I did not realize this thing was a thing. Do you know this thing was a thing? And it does a thing with a thing? I think I want that for my. Oh, I know why I didn't have you. um, Witch's Cauldron is probably. Oh, Ashnod's Altar is going in here. The sack outlets. I've only got the 2 slots, so I'm going to want this receiver. Well, I'm going through this one fairly quickly. What do I want for the other one? I think I'm really tempted to take the Brine Shaman. Yeah. Let's take Brine Shaman because it's interesting and cool and different. Now, I am going to need Honored Heirloom in here, which is one of those cards that I'm starting to get the feeling should go into more than just, decks that are commons only, because it's just. Does the Reusable feature do anything? Look anything different? Oh, kind of. It looks cool. Which is the big thing about the double feature cards. But I feel this is a card that should go into more decks than just people that are building just around commons, because it does a lot more than it looks. Um, Sacrifice. Dread Drone might be a thing worth playing. Astrolab is kind of adorable. Let's go to the original printings. Either one. 3 mana, pay 1, tap and sack it. Get 2 mana of any one color. And then draw a card next turn. I would not completely complain about Urn of God Fire. I would not completely complain about Unstable Obelisk. But they're not what I'm looking for in this context. Priest of Yawgmoth, Saxon Artifact. I've got like nothing in terms of artifacts. Just out of curiosity, have I missed any? No. Sorry, checking the. But yeah, this is surprisingly. I've gone through this deck fairly quickly tonight, and I think part of that already came from having a plan. Like once I saw something, it's like I should build around this. I might run the Dimir locket just to get extra, an extra. No, I want something that can draw me cards regularly. Lantern of Revealing can get me Bonder's Ornament. Oh, I was looking for a sack outlet. Ideally, I want something that can sack. So Deviadnate might not be awful here. I think I might go. So Deviadnate. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Actually, 27 and 7 is 34, 35. That's a lot of creatures already. All right. How about ID equals UB? All right. Mana rocks can be. That's the wrong one. I want the one beside it. No, I've already got that one. How about. All right. Now, how many of these do I actually want to run? uh, think that's right. Yeah. Alright, let's break this down. Doesn't say basic, but it does say it says swamp or it says island. Okay. No. Okay. Alright. So, contaminated aquifer, etc., are just duals with a land type. So, Dimir Aqueduct, yes. Dismal Backwater does a thing. Mistvolt Bridge does a thing. Murky Sewer does a thing. Can actually enter untapped. Soured Springs does a thing. Waterfront District does a thing. I have 6 dual lands I can run that I'm okay that because all the rest of them Dismal Backwater, Mist, Vault Bridge, Murky Sewer, Soured Springs, and Waterfront District. Because if you compare the rest of them, Contaminated Aquifer enters tapped, has basic land types. Dimir Gate enters tapped, is a gate. Ice Tunnel comes in, enters tapped, basic land types is snow. Submerged Boneyard enters tapped. It is the basic version. All 4 of those, like these 2 are the basic land types. This is the absolute basic version. And this is the Gate, which is the same as this, except it has the type gate. Those 4 are all interchangeable because they don't do anything. These 2 will interact with stuff that cares about islands or swamps. This will interact with anything that cares about gates, but in of themselves they don't do anything. They're also not fetchable if you're playing with just commons. Unless you've got cards that, unless you've got non-land cards that say they search up something of that type. Like, oh, yeah, I mean, I guess technically you've got access to, what do you call it? I can see it. I can see the damn card. What do you mean, no? Oh, I mean, no. Expedition map. Oh, tap. Two tap and sack. Oh, it got reprinted foundations. Oh. Yeah. But then that will, expedition map will fetch any land and it doesn't care. Whereas the other six that I pointed out, Aqueduct taps for both. Dismal Backwater gains life when it enters. The bridge is indestructible. The sewer has the possibility of entering untapped. It takes some effort, but it can get there. Soured Springs comes into play in pings. And the district you can always sack to draw a card. So they all do something more than just I enter tapped, I tap for one of the two colors. I might have a relevant land type. Now that doesn't mean I can't use the oh, no? What do you mean no? Oh. I have two lands. No, this is where the gate type comes in useful. I have two lands that care about gates. That's funny. I should get that in whiteboarded just to troll some people. Oh, that's cool. New art for Basilisk Gate? Cool. I then have, so 1, 2. I then have 1, 2, 3. These two are basically dual lands because I just named the other color. This can tap for either. And then I have the Dimir Guild Gate. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Um. So let's take a quick scan over this. Uh, where was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Probably maybe 5 here, so call that 15, 16. I'm going to want blue here, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So very roughly speaking, 22 out of 55, so about 40%. 40% of 20 is 8. Why am I talking about 20? Because this gives me an idea how many islands I want. And then swamp, because I want 20 basics. Now, this means I can get away with running, Because if I already don't mind running, because Sea Gate and Black Dragon Gate are suddenly both gates. Okay, let's label you as duals. You? Sure. Seagate. No. What were you? Oh, yes. Dimir Guildgate. Seagate. Black Dragon Gate. Which I cannot unreasonably call Gateway Plaza and Heapgate. I now have a reason to run Basilisk Gate. I have Scare Tiller. Oh, I missed putting you here. I'm going to want tap and untapped. See, this is a deck where I want Gateway Plaza over Public Thoroughfare, because even though Public Thoroughfare is generally better, Gateway Plaza has the gate type. Survivors Encampment. Holdout Settlement. Both of which are basically identical. Tap for colorless. Tap an untapped creature you control. Add 1 mana of any color. This gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gates for pumping. Because Basilisk Gate is a gate itself, which suddenly means I have the ability to pump a creature by +6/+6. Have to do this as sorcery, but suddenly I can make a 3/3 into a 9/9, which is not nothing. All right. Alright, sort by... yeah. Actually... let's start off with blue lands. Mystic Sanctuary I can play. I don't have any way to fetch lands. I've only got 4 slots left. I probably want to go... Alright, let's get black out of the way first. I want Witch's Cottage. Mortuary Mire, and Bujuka Bog. Which means no cycling lands, no other lands that can fetch mana. Uh, no lands that deal with counters, etc. Let's look at the blue ones. Helomar Depths is an option. Mystic Sanctuary is an option. Skyline Cascade is pseudo removal. I think. I think it's Helomar Depths. I think it's. I'm not sold on it. Helomar Depths. Bujuka Bog. Witch's Cottage. Because the big thing about Witch's Cottage and Mortuary Mire is they specifically progress the game plan. They do what my deck is already trying to do. That is a deck list, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone who doesn't want to be qualified as either of those, for whatever reason you wish, that's a deck list. I've been streaming 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I've only started I actually started doing the deck list rather late. So about 2 hours in to do a deck. And I am not unhappy with this. Alright, let's throw this up on a deck stats. Deck builder. Now that I actually remember how to do this. Alright. Time to make categories. Reanimation, flicker, pirate, removal, sack outlets, recursion, first strike, ramp, dual lands, other. 10. flicker. Planar incision. Siren's Ruse. Pirates. Gutless. Prosperous Pirates. Greedy Freebooter. Dire Fleet Hoarder. Lajara. Kinseekers. Ghostly Changeling. Wait, Ghostly or Ghastly? No, Ghostly. Skeletal Changeling. Venomous Changeling. Bark Form Harvester. Being the one card that we can play. That will actually get stuff back into our deck. Bark Form Harvester does so much, it's silly. 17, which is 6. Desperate Castaways. There you go. Dinosaur Hunter really doesn't have any reason except, hey, by the way, I accidentally killed a dinosaur. Fathom Fleet, Border and Cutthroat. $22. Alright, first strike. The first strike is the funny list. Tidal Flats. Limb Duels. High Guard. Which I always thought was Honor Guard. Order of the Ebon Hand. Rigid Kusite. Bladed Pinions. And Jousting Lance. Although they really should have a Cutlass instead, but that's another story. Removal. Introduction to Annihilation. Raven Form. Ashes to Ashes. Overwhelming Remorse. What did Remorse do? Oh, that one. Thank you. Sack Outlets. Viscera Seer and Brine Shaman. Archaeomancer. Salvager of Secrets. Shipwreck Dowser. Repository Scab. And Mnemonic Wall. And I do have the ability to generate infinite mana, I believe. Oh, no, they come into play tapped. Ghostly Flicker. I don't have the way to generate infinite mana. I might. I could. If somebody's life total is low enough, then maybe I can with the... I think it's the Murky Sewer. Lantern of Revealing. Scare Tiller. Ashnod's Altar. Honored Heirloom. Bonder's Ornament. And so Devi Adnate. Equal to its cost. Okay. Which is another sack outlet. Duels. Dimir Aqueduct. Dismal Backwater. Mist Vault Bridge. Murky Sewer. Soured Springs. Waterfront District. Dimir Guildgate. Seagate. Black Dragon Gate. Gateway Plaza. Heapgate. Basilisk Gate. Halimar Depths. Bojuka Bog. Witch's Cottage. Mortuary Mire. 5 over there. Survivor Encampment. Holdout Settlement. 7, 5, 6, 7. Island. Swamp. 8 islands. And 12 swamps. Whoops. Right. 8 islands, 12 swamps. Analyze. We mean revoke demise. Not legal. Because it's in Foundation's Jumpstart. Okay, so we can ignore that. Share. Copy. Paste. Save. update this to and then update what were you called? This. And then Dimir. Done. That is one more deck taken care of tonight. Huzzah! What does get annoying is when you pick up cards, not knowing what kind of deck you're going to make first, and then find out that you don't end up needing them. Oh well, such is life. But I will put this link into the chat though, and I'll probably save it later. Just to make sure, I want to see a thing. Slesnia. Okay, good. Yeah, it should be fine. So. So that will get you to this. And this is a Google Doc that is keeping track of all the lists of all the decks that I'm working on. Which means, as you can tell, I've actually got quite a bit done so far. um, Which one was this? This is Ramirez, which is you. Cut that from there, from needs to here. And commons. That is all my commons lists done. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now let's go through some of these. Just because some of them were interesting and some of them were fun. So let's start. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Let's start off with mono brown ramp. So I have a few things that I've done here. Let's pull this up on here as well. So as you can tell, once I've actually, when I'm actively working on building that deck, I have it cross out the name, once I've actually got the cards for it. But that being said, I've done a few things here. So this is, surprise, surprise, this is a ramp deck. And What is this saying it is? So basically, less than 70 euros, less than $100, or sorry, less than, so 60 bucks for Card Kingdom and like under 40 bucks from TCG Player. So, this is how I've got my deck broken out. Early ramp. Stuff that I can get into play really early and and cast, and get mana out of it. This is where, if it was legal, a card like Soul Ring would be. However, this is a deck that is strictly commons. Soul Ring has not yet been printed at common, so I cannot use it here. Springleaf Drum, tap it in a creature to get a mana of any color. Flower Stone, tap for a color. You know what? Let's go to the visual spoiler. Tap for any color mana your opponent can make. Mind Stone, tap for mana or, sack it to draw a card. Ornithopter Paradise, 0/2 flyer, tap for any color. Ashnod's Altar, sack a creature for mana. For 2 mana, incidentally, which is a fair bit for a deck like this. And then Terror Worker. 3 mana, 1/3 with reach. Do not sleep on reach. Taps for colorless. If you've got the Mind Worker and the Power Plant Worker, it taps for 3 mana instead. Higher ramp. This is stuff that you're generally going to be paying, because if you take a look at this, most of this is like, 1 to 3 mana. This is stuff that's going to get me more, it's either going to cost me more or it's going to net me more. Alloy Mirror. Alloy Mirror I had as Palladium Mirror. Oops. Which was great. Which is why it was listed under higher ramp. Which was then I found out, no, Palladium Mirror is an uncommon. Well, crap. So then I had to change it to Alloy Mirror, which is 3 mana, 2/2, tap for any color. Everflowing Chalice. For every 2 mana that you pump into it when you cast it, it will tap for 1 colorless for every 2 mana that you put into it. So if you paid 6 to cast it, it's going to tap for 3 colorless, which is why it's under a higher ramp. Kozilek's Channeler, 5 mana, 4/4, taps for 2. Sisay's Ring and Urgolem's Eye, the same as the Channeler without being a warm body. Assembly Workers. This is where the Tower Worker comes in. It's an assembly worker. Then you have Assembly Worker itself. 3 mana, 2/2. Where are they? Oh, they're over here. Okay, early ramp is here. Higher ramp is here. Assembly Workers are over here. 3 mana for a 2/2. Tap target assembly worker gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Basically a literal callback to Mishra's Factory, which was a land that tapped for colorless. You could tap it to turn it into a 2/2 artifact creature, which had the assembly worker type. Or you could, I think it was pay 1 and tap it. To give an assembly worker +1/+1 till end of turn. The Tower Worker, here's the Mine Worker. These refer back to Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower, Urza's Power Plant. The Mind Worker, 2 mana, 2/1, taps for 1, and if you have all 3, you gain 3 life instead. And the Power Plant Worker is a 5 mana 4/4, which is a reasonable body. Pay 3 to give it +2/+2 till end of turn, but if you've got the other 2 workers as well, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Activate only once each turn. Aw. I don't care. I'll eventually get there. Foundry Assembler is just a 5/5 with a 5 mana 3/3 with Improvise, which means I can tap my artifacts to cast it instead of tapping lands. And then Self-Assembler is a 5 mana 4/4, which can fetch other assembly workers, which means if I have, let's say, the Power Plant Worker and the Tower Worker, I can get the assembly worker to fetch the Mine Worker, and then I've got all 3. Removal. Ways to blow stuff up. These are literally in here to blow stuff up. Goblin Firebomb. 1 mana to cast with flash. 7 tap and sack it, destroy target permanent. So 8 mana to blow up a thing. But you're going to get to 8 mana fairly easily with this deck because there's a lot of ramp. Introduction to Annihilation. I play this in so many decks. It's just insane because it's 5 mana. Exel target non-land permanent. It's not a land. Get rid of it. Do not care. Especially if you're playing something like Mono Red. The ability for Mono Red to have Introduction to Annihilation. Get rid of an annoying enchantment that's on the board. Or something. Or just a really big creature and just say, go away. So good. I'll come back to the next one in a moment. Scour from Existence. 7 mana, instant, Exile target permanent. This one can blow up lands. It's not going to be very often. You need, an instant land destruction spell, but it occasionally happens. Tormod's Crypt Keeper. In my opinion, as far as Commander is concerned, a strict upgrade over Tormod's Crypt because it's also a 3/2 with Vigilance, and the body part itself means a lot. And then Tormod's Crypt's ability, tap and sack it, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Universal Solvent, the same thing as Goblin Firebomb, it's just it doesn't have flash. And Unstable Obelisk, 3 mana for the same as Goblin Firebomb, except it also taps for colorless. And then you get Rune Sword. This is the weird one in here. So, yeah, let's pull up the Oracle text in here. Rune Sword. Target attacking creature, so it's 6 to cast, 3 in tap. Target attacking creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. When that creature leaves the battlefield this turn, sacrifice Rune Sword. If the creature deals damage to a creature, if the creature deals damage to a creature, so the creature that you targeted deals damage to another creature this turn, the creature dealt damage, the creature that got hit, can't be regenerated this turn. If a creature dealt damage by the targeted creature would die this turn, exile that creature instead. So, in other words, you target an attacking creature with this. You give it a small power boost. If that creature leaves the board, the sword goes the sword gets sacrificed. That's the easy part. Any creature dealt damage by the creature that you targeted with this that you gave, that's carrying the sword. Any creature dealt damage by the sword, basically, can't regenerate, and if it would die, you exile it instead. which is why this is under removal. Recursion. Ways to get stuff back. Biblioplex Assistant. 2/1 flyer when it enters the battlefield. Grab an instant or sorcery and put it back on top from your graveyard. Put it on top of your deck. Guardians of Koilos comes into play. Return another historic permanent you control to owner's hand. So in other words, basically as far as this deck is concerned, any artifact that's in play, bounce it back to your hand. Mirror Retriever and Workshop Assistant are slightly different size, slightly different costed, the same effect. When it dies, return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. You combine, if you have any sort of cast trigger, or come into play trigger like Essence Warden, or any of the other Soul Sisters, or anything of that nature. Or on the flip side, you've got, what's his name? Disciple of the Vault. If you've got a silly amount of mana, you can just, or even if you've got a handful of mana and a sack outlet, the fun one in this case being, Ashnod's Altar. You just keep sacrificing them and returning the other one back to your hand all the time. And you'll get, you'll get all your triggers just going off and going on off and going off. And if you combine this with like Disciple of the Vault, and you just kill all your opponents eventually. Treasure/gold. Gold is very close to treasure in the context of Magic the Gathering. So, Gold Vein Pick. When a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Prize Statue comes into play or is put in a graveyard. Create a treasure token. Prying Blade. Cryptic creature deals damage to, you get a treasure token out of it. I had some here that did gold, and I don't know what happened to them. Stuff that fetches lands. Expedition Map, as we mentioned earlier, fetches any land. Explorer Scope. When a creature attacks, look at the top. If it's a land, it goes into play. Farfinder. Comes into play, fetch a basic land and put it in your hand. Mycosynth Wellspring. Comes into play or hits the bin. Search for a basic, put it in your hand and shuffle. Scare Tiller is in the other deck. This is basically my replacement for Soul Ring in most of these decks, just because it does so much. In fact, I was so happy when on the recent Commander Clash, the four people, each one had to play a different rarity for their deck, and all 100 cards had to be that rarity. So Richard, who's basically, MTG Goldfish is his baby, he got stuck playing, I would say, some might say stuck playing commons. I think he did really well. Yeah, he played Scare Tiller in that, and it got him like 3 extra lands that game, I think, or something like that, which, that's saying something. Navigation Orb. Turns around and fetches, 2 lands. It's basically Cultivate, slightly more expensive, but when you're playing mono brown, you get what you're given. Wayfarer's Bauble. Same idea. This is basically rampant growth for an extra mana. Although, the funny thing is about Navigation Orb and Wayfarer's Bauble is they don't say do as a sorcery, so you can crack them at instant speed. They're also, Pay some now and an activation cost later. Walking Atlas. Grab lands that are in your hand, drop them into play. A suite of stuff specifically here to be ramped into. This is like 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. Uh, Accomplish Automaton. 7 mana, 5, 7 with, and I can either throw another body into play or, which is what I'm probably more likely to do, or make it into a 6, 8. Cogwork Archivist. Get cards back into my deck. Eldrazi Devastator, 8, 9 Trample for 8. Hand of Emrakul, 7, 7 Annihilator, 1 for 9. I'm never gonna have the Eldrazi spawn to fast track it. Kozilek's Pathfinder. Most of my stuff taps for colorless mana. So yeah, 6 mana, 5, 5. Target creature can't block Kozilek's Pathfinder this turn. I can essentially make it unblockable just by tapping mana. Maelstrom Colossus. 8 mana, 7, 7 Cascade. Doesn't have trample or anything else, but just a 7, 7 with Cascade. So it's going to bring along, probably realistically in this deck, a card that's at least 3 mana. So you're paying 5 mana for 7, 7. Maruch. 8 mana, 7, 7 trample, which is fine. And if I spent treasures to cast it, I get refunded them. Pardric Wanderer, 6 mana, 5, 5 trample. Prophet of the Peaks, 6 mana, 5, 5 comes into play Scry 2. A decent body that lets me check the top of my deck, and it's like, yeah, no, get rid of those. Razorfield Rhino is going to be a 6 mana, 6, 6. It's vanilla essentially. But a 6, 6 is nothing to sneeze at. And then Ulamog's Crusher that has to attack every turn, but 8 mana for an 8, 8 Annihilator too. 6 cards of card selection. No, keep in mind, I keep saying this. I'm not building for Pauper. I'm not building for Pauper Commander. I'm building for Commander. I don't care if it's banned in other formats. Is it banned in Commander? That's my only restriction. Bonder's Ornament is banned in Pauper. But I'm playing it because it's not banned in Commander. It's a manaless with upside. In this case, 4 tap. Anyone who has a Bonder's Ornament gets to draw a card. Most of the time that's just me because almost nobody plays them otherwise. Bronze Walrus. It's basically another, what was he called? I'm drawing a blank on the name. Oh. Alloy? Yeah, Alloy Mirror. He's another Alloy Mirror, but he comes in play and he scries 2. Lantern of Revealing. I think we saw that earlier. 3, again, another manaless, but 4 tap. Look at the top of your deck. If it's a library, if it's a land, you can put it in play tapped. Otherwise, you can put it on the bottom. Mana Geode, another manaless, comes in play scry 1. Network Terminal, another manaless, but pay 1, tap it, and tap another untapped artifact I control to draw a card and then ditch a card. I have seen people playing with, playing a normal commander deck. Watch what I'm doing with that and just go, that has to die now. You're drawing too many cards off of that. Seer's Lantern. Almost a manaless. It only taps for colorless. Aw. Pay 2 and tap it as scry 1. I have 4 fetch lands. These are basically all lands that can search for a basic land. It's gonna get updated, so Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse and Warp Landscape. Like, these three will all get changed into, there's Promising Vein and, let me think here. Promising Vein, I forgot what the other version of Promising Vein is called, but it's basically the same card with a different name. And Escape Tunnel um, is going to replace those three, which means I'll go from 4 lands that tap for, 4 lands, 2 that tap for colorless, and 2 that can only fetch, to 3 that can tap for colorless and 1 that can only fetch. But it's not, it can only fetch, it can also turn around and make something unblockable. Combo lands. You remember what I said earlier when we were working on the, on Ramirez about gates? Yeah, I have Basilisk Gate here too. I have a handful of gates, and I have cards that specifically fetch any land. I have Versus Mine, Tower, and Power Plant. I have Heap Gate, Basilisk Gate, and Gateway Plaza. I think I've got a couple other gates further down. I've got Cloud Post and Glimmer Post. Cloud Post taps for colorless for each locust I control, and Cloud Post and Glimmer Post are both, both have the locust type, so it can tap for 2. Glimmer Post comes into play and gains me life based on how many locusts I have. Size changing. These are either, so Cave of Temptation and Forge of Heroes will either, pump a commander. Desert will ping a creature, and Quicksand can shrink an attacking creature. Recursion /select /draw, basically stuff that mucks around with the top of my library, or, gets me cards back one way or the other. Cradle of the Accursed, okay, that's kind of cheating in that context. But it's a land that turns into a zombie, basically. Crystal Grotto comes out of play, Scry 1. Haunted Fengraf gets me a creature card back to my hand. Study Hall lets me scry based on how many times I've cast my commander. Takacious Dig Site, such a good card. Pay 3, tap it, surveil 1, i.e. look at the top of my deck and I can put in the graveyard if I want. Other lands, 20 Wastes, Darksteel Citadel, Holdout Settlement, Survivor's Encampment. I was happy about this one. I was really happy with this one. White. The white deck is based around, it says value creatures. That's slightly misleading. I'm not going to go through every card the way I just did with the colorless deck, but basically the idea of this deck is every time, every card has to be able, well, I shouldn't say every card, but most of these cards have to fetch me at least 2 bodies coming into play. So, when it says 2 bodies, this is usually, but not solely, when it comes into play, make another creature. So, Attended Knight is a 3 mana 2/2 with first strike. Comes into play, make a 1/1 soldier. So he brings along his own Squire. Although it's not actually Squire, because Squire was a 2 mana 1/2 with no abilities. But I digress. Or then you have other cards like Raise the Alarm, Call the Cavalry, Sworn Companions that that are spells that make that make two tokens. And I've got almost a dozen of those. And then I've got a little more that make me three or more. Three or more is a bit misleading because some of these don't make creatures themselves. Well, sorry. Some of them don't make much in terms of creatures normally, but they can net you multiple creatures over X number of turns. What I mean by that, so Pegasus Guardian. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, you make a 1/1 flyer. Okay, and it's a 3/3. So that sounds like okay. Well, that should go under two creatures. But it does this every turn. So if you crack a fetch land and and then you sacrifice something to Ashnod's altar, on a following turn, and then something gets returned back to your hand on the following turn, then he's already created 3 extra bodies. Recruit the Worthy. You get a 1/1 token, and it's got buyback. Ication Crier. Pitch cards every so often to make, two 1/1s. Stony Brook Schoolmaster. Whenever it becomes tapped, make a merfolk. So you can easily, if they don't immediately say you make 3 or more, Soul Migration being a 2/4 that brings on 2 extra bodies. Yeah. Pump Up the Jam. Obviously reference to a song by the same title way back in the day. Most of these are cards that will give at least, +2. Well, actually, not even most of them. Many of them give at least +2 power, usually for about 3 or 4 mana. Ethereal Guidance +2/+1 as a sorcery for 3. Guardian's Pledge +2/+2 for 3 mana as an instant. Kythion's Tactics, however you want to pronounce it. 3 mana +2/+1. If you've got 2 or more instant or sorceries, they also get Vigilance. Righteous Charge, 3 mana +2/+2 sorcery. Sanctified Charge, 5 mana +2/+1 instant. White creatures you control, which is pretty much all of them, also get First Strike. And I've got a couple that only give +1/+1, but there's a reason. Inspiring Roar are +1/+1 counters. Ramosian Rally, I can tap a creature as long as I've got a plains in play instead of paying its mana cost for +1/+1. Silver Flame Ritual are +1/+1 counters. And if I spend at least 3 white mana, gee, this is a mono white deck, that's going to be really hard. They also get Vigilance till end of turn. And I've got Charismatic Vanguard and Steadfast Unicorn that have activated abilities that give my creatures +1/+1 till end of turn. And Warded Battlements that turns around and says my attackers get +1/+0. So I have a lot of way of producing. So let's go back here for a sec. So 13. So I've got 24 cards that are going to net me at least 2 bodies. Let's say for every 3 cards I spend, that's 7 creatures. And 11 cards who are there to pump the team. That means if somebody hits a Wrath effect and wipes the board, okay, that's nice. I'll spend 2 cards. I've got 4 more creatures. No, you gonna Wrath again? Okay. Oh, look, you Wrath again. Okay, I'll spend 3 more cards and get 6 more creatures. You gonna Wrath again? You only have to spend a couple because every time they do that, like 1 card, one of these pump spells is easily another, an extra 14 points of damage. You know, you can easily do off of 4 cards like 21 points of damage just by attacking. Removal. um, Angelic Purge. Additional cost, sack a permanent Exel target artifact, enchantment, or creature for 3 mana. Buyer's Silence. So I have Introduction to Annihilation here again, as with a lot of my decks because it's so good. Buyer's Silence, same effect except they make a treasure. Secure the Scene, same effect except they get a soldier token. Gaze of Justice. Additional cost to cast it. Tap 3 untapped white creatures I control. Boy, that's going to be really hard. Exile target creature, and it's got flashback. Outflank is going to get replaced with Thraben Charm. Because it's an extra mana, and so this says target attacking or blocking creature. Damage equal to the number of creatures I control. Thraben Charm for 1 extra mana. Target creature does not have to be in combat. Twice the number of creatures I control. Scales so fast, so hard, so quick. Or destroy target enchantment or exile a number of graveyards. These last 2 columns. Bodies entered? ? So, Celebrity Fencer. Creature comes into play. This gets a +1 counter. Celestial Unicorn. Whenever I gain life, get a +1 counter on it. Griffin Protector. Another creature enters. This gets +1 till end of turn. Suture Priest. Another creature enters under my control. I gain a life. Creature under somebody else's control. I can make them lose a life. Lunarch Veteran. Another creature enters under my control. I gain a life. It has Disturb, which means its backside is Luminous Phantom. Whenever another creature I control leaves the battlefield, I gain life. And then that one finally exiles. And then Nurturing Presence, I throw on something else and basically give it Celebrity Fencer's ability. And when it enters, well, not quite Celebrity, sorry, Griffin Protector's ability. And then when the Nurturing Presence enters, I get a 1/1 token. Card draw. Bonder's Ornament. So good. Have to play it in so many of these decks just because it's consistent card draw and it's a manaless. Clockwork Fox. Draws me cards when it dies. Skycrier. Me and target player gain, draw cards. Spare Supplies. Really hard to find a card that will net you more than 1 for 1 in Pauper. Or, spend 1 card and get 2 out of it. Really hard to get better than that. So Spare Supplies, I end up throwing in a lot of these decks. Ashnod's Altar, Scare Tiller, we've seen them before. Fanatical Devotion. Sack a creature to regenerate target creature. I'll sack a token to, to keep my my attendant knight, alive. Or, more relevantly, something like, maybe the celebrity fencer has got up to like four plus one counters on it. It's like, well, no, I want to keep you around now. I'll sack a token, no big deal. Ramp, 7 pieces of ramp. Everflowing Chalice we've seen before, Lantern Revealing we've seen before, Mindstone we know, Urgolem's Eye, Unstable Obelisk, Springleaf Drum, we've seen them all before. The only thing that's new here is Marble Diamond. 2 mana, comes in a play tapped, taps for white. 37 lands. This is a mono white deck. I'm running 18 planes. I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ways to fetch them. I'm running all 3 cycling lands. Crystal Grotto and Study Hall are there to basically do some kind of deck manipulation thing. Crystal Grotto comes into play, scry 1. Right. Study Hall would be down here. Oh, yeah, that's the scry version. Why is this acting up? I don't know. Kabir Crossroads, Radiant Fountain, both come to play, Game Me Life. Holdout Settlements, Survivors Encampment, we know about those. Haunted Fangraph, Takacious Dig Site, we've seen before. Idyllic Grange, comes out play, put +1 counter on target creature you control. And Cave of Temptation. A lot of the stuff that's in the mana base, you're going to end up seeing me use over and over and over again. But this particular deck actually holds up really well. Part of what I really wanted from my decks was at least nominally be able to hold up against other regular levels, so not tier 1 or tier 2, like the typical regular, let's have a friendly game of Magic, with people that you like to hang out with, not the cutthroat version that you see at some groups. It's just, what I like to refer to as like beer and pretzels magic. And against those, it actually holds up pretty well. Let's go to blue. Now, blue was interesting because this was what I call take me down to Cantrip City. I want cards to draw me cards. So, I am drawing as many cards as I can in this deck. Prismatic Piper, again, because there really wasn't anything at that point that will let me, draw extra cards. Actually, let me just take a quick check on Scryfall. I could run. Oh yeah, I thought about Candlekeep Sage. I wasn't impressed with it though. You're mythic, okay. Yeah. 1 common, 3 uncommons, 1 rare, 1 mythic. But I saw Candlekeep Sage and I'm like, it's fine. But I wasn't. God damn it. But I wasn't impressed with it. Okay, it's still going to do it. Alright, whatever. So, 23. So this is 22 plus my general. 22 cards that all say, when they come into play or, when they enter or when they leave, draw cards. That is the job of these guys. They're all here to be creatures that let me draw cards. Pump up the jam. Again, I've used that name again. These are usually single targeted cards, including the one Glorious Anthem style effect that you actually get to play in Pauper, Sunken City. 2 blue upkeep. All my creatures are getting +1/+1. Yeah, and I tried for the most part of giving it at least +2/+2. Um, Ghostly Wings got a pass because I had so many cards. I'll be drawing so many cards, discarding the occasional card to get the creature back to my hand is, acceptable. um, and Rousing Reed comes into play, and I draw 2 and discard a card. I'm fine with that. Removal. Again, all my removal draws cards. Tap a creature, doesn't untap next turn. Enchant creature doesn't untap next turn. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you controlled that, so if I bounce one of my own things, draw a card, which is not completely unreasonable because I can bounce a creature that drew me a card when it came into play, bounce it back to my hand, and then replay it again, and get more cards out of it. Yeah, I'm not crazy. Gust of Wind. If I control a flyer, this costs me less. Bounce a non-land permanent I don't control. Draw a card for 2 mana at that point. Leaving the Dust, same idea, but it's going to cost 4 all the time. Relic of Progenitus eats graveyards and will draw me a card. Rooftop Nuisance. Tap down a creature for a turn, draw a card with Casualty. Draw a trigger. Stuff that actually triggers on me drawing cards. Have I drawn 2 or more cards this turn? Chances are I will have. So Kite will actually be able to. He'll be a 2 mana. Sure, it says it's a 1/2 flyer. It's probably going to hit for like 5 or 7. Well, no. Sorry. It's only going to hit for 3. Because it doesn't go for each additional. But I'll still end up attacking. Yeah. Jace's Erasure. I draw cards, I make somebody mill. Latinum Adept. Every time I draw my second card, it gets a counter. Mantle of Tides. I can draw a second card and move it to another creature. Steelgaze Griffin. Second card makes it. So this is basically the same as Kite, except it's a 2/4 flying base instead of a 1/2. So it's twice as big. Bulk Draw. Clear the Mind is probably miscategorized, but I didn't really have another good place to put it. But it gets cards that are in my graveyard back into my deck, so I can keep drawing. Mental Journey. One of the best, draw 3s. Basic land cycling, and then draw, or I can hard cast it for 6 and draw 3. I forget what the other one that sees a lot of play right now is called. I forget, but it's 5 mana, and it even goes down into like Legacy and Vintage. Rush of Knowledge. Draw cards equal to my highest mana value in play, which is probably going to be 5. Secrets of the Golden City. When I hit, 10 permanents, that's going to be draw 3. Theft of Dreams. Oh, look, my opponent's got a bunch of tapped creatures. I'll draw 1 for each. Third Pass Savant and Timur's Invoker. Reasonable sized cheap bodies that I can pay 7 or 8 mana to draw 2 cards. No, aka their counter spells. And they all draw cards. Some of them are better than others. Keep safe. Counter target spell that targets a permanent I control. Draw a card. Targets one or more creatures. Draw a card. Counter target spell. Draw a card. Uh, Devious Cover Up is in here to counter spell. I don't care about the exiling. You may shuffle up to 4 target cards from your graveyard into your library, which means I can use that in combination with Clear the Mind to keep my deck going infinite if I want. Dream Fracture. Counter target spells, they draw a card, I draw a card. Field Inspection. This is going to get replaced with Refute because it's the exact same thing for 1 less mana. Grip of Amnesia. Counter target spell unless they want to exile their graveyard. Oh, and I draw a card. Mana Rocks. More card drawing. Arcane Signet doesn't. I think that's the only one. No, Arcane Signet and Felwar Stone. The only ones that I turned around and said no to. Bonder's Ornament, we've talked about. Commander's Sphere, sack it to draw a card. Letter of Acceptance, pay 2, tap and sack it to draw a card. Mind Stone, pay 1, tap and sack it to draw a card. Oreska's Relic, tap and sack it to gain 3 life and draw a card if I've got the City's Blessing. 4 fetch lands, 7 lands that can either, scry, surveil, or, or they cycle to draw, or you get the idea. And then 22 lands. 20 basic islands and the Cradle of the Accursed that we talked about earlier, which is kind of... it's another buddy, which is fine. And Skyline Cascade, which taps down somebody else's creature. So that's blue. I'm only going to go through the common ones right now. We'll go through the rest later. Monoblack Aristocrats. So, not everybody is familiar with what Aristocrats is. But basically what this is this is a deck where you want to sacrifice creatures for fun and profit and value. So, you'll notice the way I've got this categorized up at the top. I have Sack to Me, Cannon Fodder, Sack Because of Me, as 3 big headings, going across the top. So, Cannon Fodder are literally in the deck because I want to sacrifice them. Either they come into play, they make a body. They leave play, they make a body. They're in there just because they've got a could come into play ability, and so I don't care about the rest. Or they've got a good leave play ability, and I don't care about the rest. Sack to Me. Just that you need to be able to sack your stuff too. It has to give... pardon me. It has to give a good enough reason for you to sacrifice a creature. So, sack a creature, like Viscera's Seer is a great example. Thing is, when you're playing with just commons, it's harder to find good cards to do what you're looking for. But Viscera's Seer, sack a creature, scry 1. I don't want that card. Put it on the bottom. Sack another creature. Okay, nope. Sack a threat. Okay, I'll leave that one there. And then Sack Because of Me. these aren't your sack outlets. They're not what you're sacking. They're things that see that you have sacrificed a creature, and you've turned around and gone, oh, okay, well, in that case, so the aforementioned Disciple of the Vault. When it sees an artifact go to the graveyard, it pings for 1. So that is the basic premise of this deck. So quickly zipping through these guys. Ashnod's Altar, sack, sack for mana. The Connoisseur gets counters. This gets +2 till end of turn. This gets counters. This gets counters. This lets you draw cards and gain life. More relevantly, usually the card drawing. This drains people. This gets counters. This gives a creature -1/-1 counter. This draws cards. This scries. Cannon fodder. Your biggest section. It's all creatures, but it's all creatures that you want to die for some reason. Clockwork Fox. When it dies, you draw 2 and everyone else draws a card. It is a really good card. It's a 3/2. And I love the flavor text. It might just be my greatest invention yet. A lovable pet that decreases the need for chores. Deathbloom Salad. Dies, make another token. Deathspore Salad. Every few turns you get another body, and then you can sack those. You can sack the saplings to shrink something. Debtor's Transit. When it dies, you get 2 more 1/1s. This is basically 2 creatures out of 1 body. This is 3. Digress Horde. When it comes into play, you make 2 zombies, and then you exile 2 creatures from graveyards. When this dies, you make a zombie. When this enters, you get 2 0/1 spawn token. I don't care that there's 0/1 spawns that you can sack for mana. There are extra bodies that I can sack, so I'm getting 3 bodies out of this. When this dies, reanimate something that's cheap to cast. When this enters, get a artifact or creature card back on top, from my graveyard back on top of my deck. When this dies, make an elf. When this dies, make 3 elves. When this comes into play, I gain life. When it dies, draw a card. Ghastly Tyrant. Has the come into play abilities that will either make my creatures, not stuff that people want to block, or blow up an enchantment. So I basically care about the come into play ability on that one. And sure, it's a 6/5 for 6. That's nice. When this dies, make a token. When this comes into play, drain the table for life. Again, once it's hit play, I don't care. Doesn't need to stay in play for anything. When it leaves, make a zombie and has unearth. When it dies, make 2 zombies. When this dies, make squirrels. This I can just pay mana to bring it back, so I can just keep sacking over and over again. When this enters, if I've got 4 more cards in my graveyard, I can bring one back to hand. When this enters, make a token. When this dies, manifest turn the top card of my deck into a creature. Sack because of me. Something died this turn. This is now this becomes a 1 mana 3/2 flying death touch. Desperate Farmer. Whenever another creature I control dies, it goes from a 2/2 with lifelink to a 4/3 with lifelink. Eternal Thirst. Enchant creature has lifelink, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put +1 counter on this. Oh look, I blew up one of your. Oh look, one of your creatures died because my creatures got so big. Now this gets bigger permanently. Another creature dies. Drain somebody for a point. Another creature I control dies. This gets bigger. A player sacks a creature. This gets bigger. Permanents leave the battlefield. I scry. Creature I control dies. Scry. Sack a creature to. This should probably be sacked to me instead of sacked because of me. Deal damage equal to sacrifice creature's power to target player. So if I sacrifice, say, 6/6, I'm going to deal 6 to a player and gain that, back. Uh, 5/4 with exploit. Each opponent sacks a creature. If I exploited. Uh, Sadistically. Whenever any creature is put in a graveyard from play, put +1 on enchanted creatures. So a creature dies, this gets bigger. Whatever this is on gets bigger. Uh, Whenever another creature I control dies, put +1 counter on this. Sack creature planeswalker to gain life and draw a card. Whenever another creature I control dies, scry. Ashes to Ashes, really good, especially when you're tight on actual removal slots. Exile 2 target non-artifact creatures and take 5. Bleed Dry. Give a creature -13/-13. This is in, and if it would die, exile it instead. This is here to get rid of creatures that are really tough to kill because you can't always kill creatures with damage. If they're indestructible, this bypasses that and will not let it shuffle back in most of the time. Feed the Swarm. When you're limited on removal slots, you want your slots to be flexible. Destroy target creature or enchantment and then lose life equal to its mana value. Introduction to Annihilation needs no introduction, but tish. Shenanigans. So, Felden's Cane lets me exile it to shuffle my graveyard back in. Liliana's Shade. Basically pay black mana to pump it. And then Graph Rats and Midnight Scavengers. So, Midnight Scavengers comes into play. I get a creature that costs 3 or less back from my graveyard to my hand. If I have that and Graph Rats, I can combine them into Chittering Host. I guess it's the other half? Alright. There it is. That's the 2 halves of it. Which is a 5/6 with haste and menace. When it enters, my other creatures get +1/+0 and gain menace until end of turn. Which is kind of fun. This is why this is under Shenanigans. Or whatever. Ramp. We've been through all of this before. 5 lands to search for, to pull lands out of my deck. 6, let's say because critters. Cave of Temptation, Cradle of the Accursed, Mortuary Mire, Quicksand, Witch's Cottage we've gone through before, Forge of Heroes. I think we've gone through that. Diggy lands. Cards that let me draw cards, or I can cycle them, or Crystal Grotto Scries, or Tercaceous Dig Site Surveils. And then Bojuka Bog and Hunt to defend Graph. 1 to exile somebody's graveyard and 1 to read something back from the dead. And 20 Swamps. This deck actually turned out pretty good. I was rather impressed with how that one. Joven is not going to be fully updated. Um, I will try and get through that one faster. But I wanted a handful of cards that were there just to be big threats. Because I like big threats and I cannot lie. Because when you're looking at a deck, you're looking at trying to build a deck and you've restricted yourself to a certain category, like in this case, just commons. And you're like, I have all the basic ideas covered. You always got to remember, you need to make sure that you can have something in your deck that can be a threat to other people. And sometimes that's just size, and sometimes that's like, Volcanic Rambler. You know, pay 3 mana, colon, 1 damage to target player. Well, he costs 6 to cast, so you can do that twice a turn. So it may take some time, but between the attacking that you're going to be able to do at some point and, the mana that you can spend, assume that you could probably do 8 damage a turn. So from 50, that's a 5-turn clock just using him and the mana in your mana pool. uh Cast triggers. I slowly started building this around the ability to um whenever you cast a spell of a certain, like an instant or sorcery or a non-creature or red spell or something happens. And there's a couple of specific standouts that I want to mention here. Onslaught. This is a card that nowadays I would assume this probably to be a white spell. But it's from Exodus, back when the color pie was still iffy. 1 red, enchantment. Whenever you successfully cast, so just read cast, because this is back to before 6th edition, when certain things would check to see if you cast a spell, like you cast a spell, somebody, your opponent's got the chance to counter it, and if nobody stops it from doing its thing, like it's kind of like back then, I don't remember the actual wording back then, but it's like you would play a spell, and then once everybody said no, it's good, it can go do its thing, it's considered successfully cast, and then it tries to resolve to do its thing. But that's no longer a thing. Hasn't been a thing since before 6th edition. Or since at least 6th edition, anyway. They just turned around and said, you know what? Anything that does that sort of thing, we're just going to ask to see if it's cast. We're not even going to care if it gets countered or not. It's cast. So whenever you cast a creature spell, tap target creature. This very much sounds like it could be white nowadays. But it's a red common that you can probably pick up at your local game store for like 50 cents. Um, compare that to Furious Assault during, I think that's Urza's Destiny, which whenever you cast a creature spell, 1 damage to target player. That makes more sense. What was the other one I saw that was weird in here? I don't see it at the moment. I will find it. But yeah, a lot of these were like, they get bigger until end of turn, or you get a chance to untap, or something of that nature. Recur me. You're going to want to find ways to get get these things back to your hand from the graveyard or from play or something. Recur with me, you know, Pyroclastic Hellion lets you get a land back to your hand. Most of these are stuff that we've already seen before. Blow stuff up. I mentioned this previously. Aftershock is a big deal. Fissure is a big deal. Lava Flow is a big deal because they can all kill creatures and not care about the size. And they're 4 or 5 mana, and they have other things they can kill instead. They can both either kill lands or creatures. Aftershock can also potentially kill an artifact. In the case of Aftershock, you're taking 3. Oh well. Earth Coach Elemental. The worst it's going to be is, you roll a die, you roll lower, you roll a single digit on the die, and everyone sacks a permanent. If you roll 10 or better, it's each opponent, and if you hit a nat 20, each opponent sacks 2 permanents. Hammerheim Deadeye, blow up a flyer. Multi-removal, again, ways to replay, ways to blow up more than one thing somehow. Shout out to Icefall, which is basically pillage with recover, i.e., when a creature I control dies, I can pay 2 red to put this back in my hand. Ways to draw cards. Again, really hard to draw cards. More than 1 or 2 cards when you're just playing with commons. So I did the best I could with what I knew of that I could find. Uh, you're playing with just commons. You're playing mono red. Grave removal. Nothing that I really see there. Mana acceleration. Again, there's now, I believe, a barbarian that's like 1 less mana, which is basically the same thing. This lets me occasionally combo to get a bunch of extra mana. Sisters of the Flame is basically the red version of Llanowar Elves, but instead she's a fine. Instead, she's a 3 mana 2/2 that taps for red. Your typical suite of fetch lands, your 3 cycling lands, my utility lands. Dwarven Mine comes into play, makes a 1/1 dwarf. Sandstone Needle is a quick injection of red mana, and then 21 mountains. Green. The green deck was interesting because this is elves. And I was not sure how this was going to turn out because I wasn't just restricting myself to a color. I wasn't just restricting I was also restricting myself to a tribe, although, albeit one that's, commonly supported, no pun intended. I knew Elves was a deck that at least existed in Pauper, so at least had the possibility of being playable, but I didn't know what was going to happen. This is the first one where we've come across where I actually switched over specifically to Faceless one because I found a background that I wanted. Master Chef. Commander creatures you own have. This creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1 counter on them. This is a really big deal when you're building a tribal deck and you don't have a lot of, a lot of good options to play with. So face this one. If I can get that out fast enough, let's say turn 2 Master Chef, turn 4 Faceless one. Well, I'd probably wait until... I would probably try and get the Faceless one out first and then drop the Chef. But then what I did is I compared it. Let's see if it shows up here. Yeah, I compared it to a Pauper EDH elf deck to get me a starting point. And I found that the one I saw had 14 1-drops, 12 2-drops, 12 3-drops, 7 4-drops, 1 5, and then one more. And so I tried scaling that to the proper the proper ratios ish. for Commander. 60 and I think no, was that No, I didn't have to scale anything there. 14 and 24 is 38. 38 and 8. No. Yeah. This was... Yeah, this was a 40... This was a 60 card format, I think. I think that was 60 cards. And I scaled it to... a standard EDH size. And then had to go, okay, what can I actually run? And because I'm running 2 commanders, I now only have 98 instead of 99. So what do I get to play? Most of these are going to turn around and tap for mana. Well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of these are going to tap for mana. Directly or indirectly. Arbor Elf untaps lands. Birchler Rangers, I can tap elves to make mana. Boreal Druid taps for mana. Elvish Eulogist. Sack it to gain a bunch of life. Elvish Herder. Pay mana, give creatures trample. Elvish Mystic, tap for mana. Elvish Pioneer. Drop a land from hand into play. Elvish Scout. Pay mana to untap one of my attackers. Basically, I Maze of Ith one of my own creatures. That's just... It's silly. Is what it is. Elvish Skyscraper. Pay mana and sack a creature to blow up a flyer. Essence Warden. Creature comes into play, gain life. Fendhorn Elves taps for mana. Glistener Elf has Infect, which means I can suddenly kill somebody out of nowhere. Jasper's Sentinel. Basically the Springleaf Drum type card, in this deck at that slot. Llanowar Elves taps for mana. Llanowar Stalker. Whenever another creature enters under my control, +1 on attack till end of turn. Nettle's Sentinel. Kind of a combo piece with some of these. Doesn't untap normally, but whenever I cast a green spell, which is 98% of the deck, roughly, it untaps. Querying Ranger. Bounce a land once a turn to be able to untap a creature. Sky Shroud Ranger. Um, you know, tap as a sorcery to put a land from my hand into play. Basically, Walking Atlas. Viridian Longbow. A quick creature has tap 1 damage to any target. If I put that on Glistener Elf, I'm going to start shrinking my opponent's creatures. Because, in fact, doesn't just do poison damage to the opponent, it also shrinks the creature that it hits with -1 counters. Wirewood Pride. Giant growth effect, but it gives +X for X's number of creatures you control. So that's 20 slots. I have 17 slots at 2 mana. Atraxa Fall. Blow up an artifact, enchantment, creature of flying, or battle. Crashing Drawbridge. Tap to give my creatures haste till end of turn. Devoted Druid. Potentially another combo piece. If I've got a way to put +1 counters on it, I can generate a crazy amount of mana. Druid of the Cowl. Tap for mana. Elvish Hunter. Turn around and say, hey, by the way, creature? Yeah, you're not untapping next turn. Wait, what? Yeah. Welcome to Fallen Empires, a set that people, deride so heavily. And yet that and Elvish Scout are both in the same set. Elvish Vanguard. Elf enters, this gets a +1 counter. Elvish Visionary, draw a card. Heartwarden. Tap for mana or sack it to draw a card. Llanowar Dead. Tap and sack it to untap all forest. Big power boost. Llanowar Scout. Again, pull land in a hint from play. Please hold. Excuse you. No. Not a thing to worry about right now. Moltene's Acolyte. Has Echo. Comes into play, draw a card. Night Soil. Eats stuff in the graveyard. Priest of Titania. Taps for mana based on how many elves I've got. Not unrealistic. She's going to be tapping for like 6 or more. Solana Ledgewalker. Hexproof can only be blocked by flyers. I wonder if that also means that I think Reach says they can block as though they had flying. So I think you can get away with that one. Oh, no, that's from what do you call it? Outlaws of Thunder Junction Commander, which is going to be really recent printing. Yeah, that's 2024. So yeah, otherwise they would probably say or Reach. Yeah, okay. That's not silly. Thornwood Archer. Reach and Death Touch will eat a lot of things. Well Wisher. Tap for life based on how many on hells? Yeah. Wirewood Herald. When it dies, I can tutor up an elf and put in my hand. 3 mana. Shuts down a creature at least for a turn. If the creature is not a big creature, it's caught in the spider webs. Yeah. Deepwood Denizen. 3/2 Vigilance. Pay mana and tap it to draw a card. Farhaven Elf. Search for basic land, put in play. Guiltleaf Ambush. Make 2 wells as an instant. Clash. If I win, they gain Death Touch. I don't care about that part, but yeah. Guiltleaf Seer. Why are you... There we go. Okay. Almost Scry 2. you know, pay one, tap it, look at the top two cards, and put them back in any order. So you don't get the chance to bottom any of them. High raise saw jack. 2/3 with reach. If it blocks a flyer, it gets an extra power boost. Honored heirloom. We've talked about that before. Llanowar Visionary. Crossbreed, Elvish Visionary, and Llanowar Elves. Presence of God. Enchant creature has tap, make an elf. If I have anything in here that gives me the ability to like untap itself, I could just end up, yeah, that could be silly. Solana Star Fletcher is basically going to be a 1/3 reach that's going to tap for green. Because, when it enters, you choose a color, and that taps for that color. Spring Bloom Druid. Comes into play, I can sack land to search for 2 basics, put in play, tap, and shuffle. Timberwatch Elf. Target creature gets +X till end of turn, where X is the number of elves on the battlefield. That's not going to be silly at all. Treetop Rangers has reach. Unstable Obelisk, we've seen before. Venomous Fangs basically gives something, old school version of Death Touch. Actually, no, it doesn't even have to be. Yeah, it's essentially Death Touch. Whenever enchant creature successfully deals damage to a creature, destroy that creature. Yeah. What else? Search for a force, put in play, and then shuffle. You have a Maya Granger. Comes into play, search for land, put in play, tap, shuffle. With Echo. 4 or more mana. I've only got 10 slots there. Which still feels like a lot, but Outerleaf Mentor, come and play, make an elf. Elvish Aberration, tap for a bunch of mana. Entourage of Trust, become the Monarch, and as long as I'm the Monarch, it can block additional. Glittermonger, tap to make a treasure. Ivy Lane Denizen, another creature enters, put a +1 counter on target creature. Lislana Huntmaster. Whenever you cast an elf, make an elf. Scared Tiller, we've seen before. Shrine Steward. There's only a handful, there's, off the top of my head, 3 or 4 auras in here. And some of them are going to be really important. And so that's why the Shrine Steward is there. Spectral Hunt Caller. 5 mana. Excuse me. I know what I need. I need... There. Let's see if that works. Spectral Hunt Caller. 5 mana for 4/4. It's not enough, but 6 mana creatures you control get +1/+1 gain trample till end of turn. I'm going to be generating a lot of mana with this deck, so I can just turn around and swing for so much. Wild Herder Invoker. 8 mana. Target creature gets +5/+5 and trample till end of turn. Again, so these 2 here are basically top end threats as far as, time to finish the game. I only have 34 lands in this deck. These 5 here, 3 of them cycle. This one discovers. This one I sack to draw a card. 20 forests. The 2 captivating lands. Gingerbread Cabin gets me a food token. Holdout Settlement and Survivor's Encampment because, Scared Tiller and, the occasional other card. Forge of Heroes and Opal Palace are basically the same thing. Quicksand does a touch of spot removal and Haunted Fengraf. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to actually build that deck yet, but that looks like it's going to generate a lot of mana. Uh, you know what? I've been doing this for almost 4 hours tonight. I think I'm going to stop there. So I think we will call it for the evening, and I will see you next week. I do not expect to stream the following week, however. That's going to be Christmas Eve, and I may or may not be here. So, that being said, have a good night, and hopefully, we'll see you next week. Bye.